Hey everybody, my name is Matt McNeill, and with me today I have
Zach Conner.
And this is the beginning of an exploration into chiropractic philosophy for chiropractic students. I want to provide my fellow students with a pathway to the chiropractic philosophy that has really grounded and focused my chiropractic journey. For me, I really think that we have such a beautiful art that we offer for people, and it's driven by a beautiful philosophy. And we also have a beautiful science behind what we do as chiropractors. This past year has been a challenging year as a chiropractic student because I looked around and I saw many people who were not living up to the principle, maybe. And that is not even a judgment, I'm sure, is a apt judgment to make. Were they living up to the principle or not? But in looking in and looking out at the world, I really felt that the chiropractic philosophy that birthed chiropractic wasn't being properly communicated. And for some reason, it wasn't landing. Not all the students were getting the philosophy at the depth that it can be understood. And part of what we're going to do with this podcast is we're going to work our way through books, through the original books that express what chiropractic philosophy is all about, a rediscovering of what is at the heart of chiropractic, the why behind what we do. And when I started reading Stevenson's chiropractic textbook, I had this epiphany moment that said, oh my gosh, what if we had all read this first quarter? What if we had all just read the first part of this book, first quarter? What impact would that have on people's chiropractic development and journey? And I'm going to let Zach speak to this a little more, but he has this really great caution that he shared with me when I started to express some of what I was feeling, where he said, wait a minute, don't just denigrate the things that you don't see as perfect, but find the value in that, right? Find maybe the understanding in why it's going that way. And I know as a student at Life University, there have been many other students who have shared with me a sense of disappointment that the school has behaved the way it has, yet when they sold us on the school, they sold us on the principle. And there seemed to be an incongruency there. And I don't want to actually cast judgment and blame to Life University because wisely, they are juggling responsibilities that are very big to many people. And maybe they took the most appropriate path they could have. For me, the vision behind this is to acknowledge and to appreciate where Life University is at, and to say that there is an opportunity for us students to provide a pathway to the philosophy for one another. Zach, do you want to talk a little bit more on this idea of sanctification?
Yeah, and that is the word that came to me with all of this. Aside, the word was influenced by Dr. Michael Semeka, who is one of many very valuable resources in the Atlanta area. Life University is the world's largest chiropractic school. If something exists in chiropractic, it moves through the region in one form or another. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the doc that has helped me look through a more clear lens, and through being more clear, allowed me to see authentic optimism and sanctify the things that appear quote unquote bad, and what their value is. And where we all are in this continued process of unfoldment, to speak really generally. So when it comes to noticing that there is room for growth in in apparent room for growth in something like a large organization, a couple of things are important. One is, from a perspective of a student, it's impossible to know all of the pieces at play. We don't know everything that's happening. We don't know all of the pressures, and we can come to know more of them. We do know that certain things need to be done for accreditation and for preparation for boards, and there's different political pressures that are placed in the military. Whenever something important, I was in the Navy, whenever something important was very important was being stated, they would go out of their way to say, I am not under duress, before they would state it, meaning I don't have a gun to my head. And if they didn't say that, you would assume they did. And so this is one of those situations where there is a form of duress. At any given moment, and I would say pretty much consistently, there is the looming threat of losing accreditation. And there is politics behind that. And so there's fingers on triggers, essentially. And so there's a balancing between adhering to vitalistic principles and not getting completely shut down. So there's duress, right? And we don't know all the variables. So institutions inevitably are going to be lagging behind the forefront of discovery in all realms, because it's groups of people that are structured and institutionalized for value, for reason, for standardization, for efficiency and teachability and cohesiveness and all of the moving parts that make up that institution. The very, very forefront and deepenings and discoveries are not going to be implemented immediately. Every process requires time. And by principle, from the perspective of a student, if you are actively deepening and actively discovering, you inevitably will find things that are more valuable than the way that school is teaching it. Do not waste energy getting mad about that. That is inevitable. That is part of the process. It's our job to note that. And as we grow forward and as we enter the profession, one of two things will happen. Some of the things that we thought that they were doing wrong, we'll realize they were actually doing right, because we will have a greater perspective. And the things that actually were the room for growth, that becomes our opportunity in the future to implement that, to add those changes, to build those new schools that run differently. And so everything has its sanctification and its place. And there's no need to waste a lot of energy and frustration and anger. How can we keep things compassionate? How can we keep the clarity of communication open? And how can we recognize the value, right? This is about this podcast that you have me on today. Thank you, by the way. We are both brothers in Delta Sigma Chi, and he has decided to do this podcast and is going to rotate in other brothers. And it's an honor to be here. And this podcast is predominantly about philosophy and the discussion of principles. And there is already a lot of quality in philosophy and discussion of principles at school through Dr. Koch and Dr. Thornhill. And that needs to be recognized. And this isn't saying they're doing it wrong, let us do it right. We're so green at this. We're not docs yet. We're students. We're in discovery. And we have people who are much further along this path than we are that have a lot of wisdom to share. And so I'd say most important thing is tap into the available resources. Yes, recognize where you think there's room for growth and keep that noted and continue to deepening and discoverings. Also appreciate what is right in front of us and the resources we have. So that's the sanctification, sanctifying the things that are quote unquote apparently bad as, well, why is it like that? What's the value in knowing why it's like that? And how do we effectively move forward without creating unnecessary division?
Yes. Yeah, and I really want to follow through on that, is that we don't need to add more division in chiropractic. In fact, the whole point of this project is to bridge those gaps in the profession.